Today, we're finally talking about a project that has truly stepped onto the stage, Project Windless. Positioned by KRAFTON as a premium single-player open-world action RPG, this has been one of those projects we've heard about for years but barely seen anything from. And it feels like that it has a name, but no body era is finally over. Before we get into the details, we've been having some serious issues lately with the YouTube algorithm. When videos don't get enough likes and comments, they just don't get recommended like they used to, and that means the content reaches fewer people. So your support right now genuinely matters a lot. If you end up enjoying the video, don't forget to hit the like button, definitely leave a comment and share your thoughts. That makes a big difference for the algorithm and also helps me shape the content better based on your feedback. And if you subscribe to the channel to support us, I'd truly appreciate it. Now, if you're ready, let's jump into the video. Because Project Windless was properly introduced to a wide audience for the first time at the PlayStation State of Play on the 12th of February 2026. This was the game's first major reveal moment, and it was also confirmed that it's being led by KRAFTON Montréal Studio. In short, this game feels like the showcase of KRAFTON's AAA push in Canada. The company behind PUBG is now showing what it wants to do on the fully single-player side. We'd actually been tracking it much earlier. The name Project Windless started appearing in KRAFTON's investor presentations under pipeline lists, and there wasn't even a date attached to it at the time. It was just a title. Then in 2022, they announced active development, shared concept art, and made it clear this would be a long-term project. Now, with the State of Play trailer, we've finally seen the game's scale, atmosphere, and ambition in a real way. And here's the most interesting part. Project Windless takes place in the universe of The Bird That Drinks Tears, the novel series by Lee Yong-do, which holds cult status in Korea. But this isn't a direct adaptation. Instead of retelling the main storyline from the books, KRAFTON chose to go much further back in that world's timeline and build a new story. That makes it both an entry point for new players and a previously unseen era for those who know the universe. And that era is described as a forgotten mythic age set more than 1,000 years before the novel's main events, roughly 1,500 years in the past. A time when lands were divided, tensions between races were rising, and a continent-wide conflict was taking shape.
So the game's goal doesn't seem to be showing us a finished legend.
It feels like it wants us to witness the birth of that legend, the rise of a hero, and even the foundation of a kingdom. At the core of the world are 4 intelligent races: humans, Recon, Naga, and Talkbi. And this isn't just background flavor. Project Windless positions itself exactly around the relationships, conflicting interests, and alliance dynamics between these races. Instead of a simple one big evil and everyone fights it setup, they're promising a grayer, more political, more conflict-driven continent. The era itself amplifies that chaos about 1,500 years before the novel's main storyline during this forgotten mythic age. The continent is fractured, tensions are high, and legends are just beginning to be written. The game doesn't say the legend already exists. It says the legend will be born through your actions. And that shifts the story into a much more player-centered space. At the center of it all is the character we play, the Hero King, a legendary warrior from the Recon race. The Recon are described as massive, bird-like humanoid warriors known for their physical strength, and KRAFTON strongly implies they chose this race specifically to deliver that mythic figure feeling. So, the goal here isn't to be an ordinary adventurer, it's to play a leader who will go down in history. The Hero King wields twin star-forged blades, and the descriptions emphasize cutting down dozens of enemies at once, facing giant creatures, and rallying allied forces to shift the tide of battle as war escalates. What this tells us is that the game embraces the single hero fantasy, but not as a small-scale action title. It wants you to feel like a hero standing in the middle of war, and that leads us to the idea of the birth of a kingdom. While the official materials don't reveal every detail, the repeated emphasis on laying the foundations of a new kingdom through your actions suggests that the Hero King's transformation into legend will be the backbone of the story. So the main objective isn't finding treasure or saving one person, it's a rise that shapes the fate of an entire continent. One of Project Windless's most critical promises is its player-driven open-world structure. It doesn't look like the game will force you down a single narrative corridor. KRAFTON specifically talks about a low hand-holding design that suggests an experience driven less by constant quest markers and more by exploration, decision-making, and dealing with consequences. At this point, the faction system will likely be crucial. On a continent filled with 4 races and multiple power centers, who you ally with, who you declare war on, and which side you support could change the course of the story. If built deeply enough, it might be possible to play the same game in 2 completely different ways, and that would significantly boost replayability. On the gameplay side, the most striking element is the large-scale warfare. Through a system KRAFTON calls mass technology, thousands of soldiers and massive creatures are said to be able to fight simultaneously in real time. The important detail here is this: This isn't a strategy game. You're not commanding from above. You're in the middle of the battlefield. Imagine being locked in one-on-many combat against dozens of enemies while entire armies clash in the background. If they can deliver this in a stable and fluid way technically, it could create a truly next-gen one versus many experience. But the key issue is this: the crowd can't just be visual spectacle. The AI needs to react, flank, and surround you. The combat system is described as fully real-time and skill-based. That means you won't just power through with stats, timing, positioning, and combos will matter. Especially with the Hero King's dual blade style, we could see a fast yet powerful combat approach. If balanced correctly, it could deliver both epic scale and mechanical satisfaction. On the open world side, what I'm most curious about is how this low hand-holding promise will function in practice. Because some games claim that, then fall back into the same old formula: map icons, quest chains, repetitive loops. If Project Windless is truly ambitious, it needs to build exploration more organically. When you enter a region, the world itself should pull you in naturally, rather than shouting, "Go here." That will likely come from factions and war spreading dynamically across the world. For example, Naga pressure could increase in one region, while the Recon retreat in another. Whichever side you help could strengthen that front. If the game truly makes those systems work, the world stops being a static map and becomes a living continent.
And then player decisions stop being just dialogue choices. They start affecting the map and the balance of power.
Of course, the risk is just as big. A system this ambitious, if poorly implemented, can turn into chaos. Players might not understand what they're doing, consequences could feel random, the story could fragment. So in a player-driven structure like this, the most important thing is balance, freedom, with meaning. When you make a choice, you need to feel why it mattered and what it triggered. Another major question is how personal Project Windless will keep its story. The scale is continent-wide war, the birth of a kingdom, a legendary leader, all very epic. But epic narratives can sometimes forget the character. If the Hero King ends up being just a very strong warrior, the story could flatten over time. That's why side characters, faction leaders, allies, and conflicted relationships may carry much of the emotional weight. On the technical side, Unreal Engine 5 is already a strong signal. But the real issue isn't visuals, it's performance in those massive battles. If thousands of soldiers and giant creatures are fighting at once, animation, AI, and on-screen density all have to be extremely well optimized. If they pull that off, Project Windless won't just be remembered as a good-looking RPG, it could be remembered as a true next-gen warfare experience. Now, let's zoom out. Project Windless isn't just a new game, it feels like KRAFTON redefining itself. Most people know the company for PUBG, online, competitive, service-driven growth. But here they're going in the opposite direction. Premium, single-player, story-focused, AAA. That decision alone sends a message that they are not just a multiplayer company. The main force behind this is KRAFTON Montréal Studio. Choosing Canada isn't random, it's an ecosystem with a strong AAA development culture. The studio is led by Patrick Mythic, known for his Ubisoft Montreal background. That adds a certain level of confidence in terms of open-world scale and production discipline. Of course, confidence and final results are different things, but at least the right team seems to be in place. Another detail in KRAFTON's official statement stands out. This game is designed as a gateway for a global audience. Even someone who has never heard of the bird that drinks tears should be able to jump in and understand the story. That's why going back 1,500 years to tell the age when legends were born is such a smart move. It doesn't overwhelm new players and still gives longtime fans an unseen era. What I'm most curious about is whether KRAFTON sees Project Windless as a standalone game or as the beginning of a series. The universe absolutely supports expansion. 4 races, continent-wide wars, the birth of kingdoms. If you lay that foundation properly, you can explore entirely different eras, characters, and conflicts later. If Project Windless succeeds, KRAFTON could have a major new IP on its hands. But there are still unknowns. No release date has been announced, broad gameplay details remain limited, and we're still talking largely about vision. The confirmed facts are a premium single-player structure, open-world action RPG format, the Mythic age 1,500 years in the past, the Hero King character, and massive battle scale. Everything else will become clearer through new trailers and developer diaries. And that's exactly why Project Windless has landed firmly on my radar. Right now, the industry is full of live service attempts or safe formulas. KRAFTON is taking a risk and trying something epic, single-player, and large-scale. If they can truly pull this off, it could be one of the biggest fantasy RPGs we're talking about in 2026 and beyond. Alright guys, that's everything we currently know and have seen about Project Windless. What are you expecting from this game? Does the bird that drinks tears universe sound interesting to you? Or does KRAFTON stepping into this genre make you skeptical? Make sure to write your thoughts in the comments so we can talk about it. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel for more game news, leaks, and analysis. See you in the next video.